There's a reason you always trust your gut. Your whole body's health depends on it. Did you know 70% of your immune system resides in your gut? Invest in your health with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. DS-01 is formulated with 24 clinically and scientifically studied probiotic strains and a plant-based prebiotic to support whole body benefits. It works to promote healthy regularity and relief from occasional digestive discomfort and bloating. Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic is also formulated to support a healthy immune system, and it even helps you look healthier and more vibrant on the outside by promoting smooth, clear, healthy skin. Invest in your whole body's health with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/gut and use code 25GUT to get 25% off your first month. That's 25% off your first month of Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic at seed.com/gut. Code 25GUT.
I want that guy that does the voiceover from the cartoon to be the voiceover in this movie, though. That's the only problem.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice,
Welcome to Spotcast. This is episode 9. My name is Tim Mitra, and I'm in Toronto, Ontario, and it's my pleasure to be joined once again by Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
We also have Jonathan Kula, and way down there in Mississauga, Ontario.
Oh, it's warm down here in the south in Mississauga.
Is it?
Oh, yeah, it's balmy compared to way up north in Toronto.
Balmy 7 degrees Celsius or something like that?
It's something like that.
So should we don't have much of a spot. Did we do episode 8, a fact check, or is that what you were just doing?
No, I just added that. That's we had a pretty good episode, a milestone episode, I think, for us.
Wow. Only 2 faux pas. All right. So why don't you hit us with the fact check? Or the
fact check. So let's see. 1653 of episode 8. There were 6 space shuttles.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Enterprise, the Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour.
Endeavour. So I remembered Endeavour throughout the week, but I know I didn't mention it on the show.
Yeah. And the only other thing was we were talking about The Walking Dead, and I made the comment that The Walking Dead franchise has made Robert Kirkman a very wealthy man. And while that is no doubt true, there was a story that came out recently that apparently Robert Kirkman is being joined by Gail Ann Hurd and Glenn Mazzara and some of the other principals of the show in suing AMC over $300 million in revenue that has not been settled. So that's, somebody's making a lot of money off of The Walking Dead. It's just remains to be determined how that's been settled out. So
cool. Can you paste a link to that for the show notes for the people at home?
I will do that.
For those of them driving in their cars or driving at home. What is it?
We don't really have a catchphrace for this one. What is it like?
What do you say?
Transporting at home? I don't know.
No. What do you say for the more Chess Code folks on there?
So that one is for those of you driving at home, but I feel like we should have a spacey here.
Oh,
making the trek home.
Right, making the trek. No, see the irony of the statement, Jonathan, is that if they're at home, they're probably not driving. And Jaime sort of said it wrong, and we've just carried on with that tradition. So
yeah, it mixed 2 totally different approaches to mean the same thing, which is for those of you who are driving, or for those of you following along at home. And I did say it incorrectly once, and so I just kind of like going with that. So driving at home, you're doing donuts in your parking space,
or driving the lazy boy across the living room. You never know.
Yep,
it's true.
I personally enjoy my Spotcast when I'm walking the dog. That's my Spotcast recap time.
Yes. So a bit of follow up here. I was watching the original series, episode 19, as it was broadcast, or as they have it on Netflix. This is as it was broadcast. It's episode 20 on the Netflix. It's an episode called "Tomorrow Is Yesterday," and in that one, Kirk says there are only 12 like it, referring to the Enterprise, which I thought was interesting. And they refer to themselves, their authority, as United Earth Space Probe Agency, not the Federation per se, on a strange name. And strangely enough, this is the one where they go back in time. They end up somehow in a time warp, and they end up back in 1960s Cape Canaveral, in fact, where they're spotted by a F1 that's sent up to, or an F-16, I guess, or something like that. No, it's probably not that. Jonathan, you can fact check that one.
Yeah.
They're chased by a plane who actually sees them, and they decide to put the pilot in a tractor beam, and they end up destroying his ship. Spoilers for those of you who haven't watched it since 1966, but they end up breaking up the ship, so they end up transporting the pilot onto the Enterprise, and madcap ensues after that. Like madcap, chicanery and much cavorting happens after the rest of the episode. But at one point, they also transport a security guard from the Army base, or the, I guess, Air Force base, where they're trying to recover the tapes of the videos that the pilot made of them. And the freaked out guy won't leave the transporter room. The security guard, or the armed guard, or no, army person. How do I refer to him a minute ago? That guy, yeah, he was. And so the transporter operator goes over to the replicator and says, "Would you like something to eat?" And he says, "Yeah, I'd like some chicken soup." And sort of puts a card into the slot. And 2 seconds later, some chicken soup appears in the under the little bread box door. So that's probably like we were talking about the replicator, Earl Grey hot kind of replicator that Picard used in the Next Generation. So that was kind of an interesting thing. So that's it. And then what else is going on, guys?
Well, I think we have a lot to unpack in our looks at Star Trek Discovery and Orville this week, as we both as they both traveled back to 1980s Star Trek lore for their inspiration. So.
Yeah, sure. All right. So who wants to dive into episode 7? Make the magic to make the sanest man go mad. Okay, I'll dive in. Michael Burnham sets the time code here, which is kind of important, and I made note of it because I don't know why, but 2136.8 is the star date, and lo and behold, they end up in the sort of one of my favorite I don't know what you call it, plot styles, or I don't know if it's a trope or whatever, Jonathan, but the idea where they get stuck in a time loop and they have to relive.
Oh, it's a trope.
I called it the Groundhog Day effect, right?
Yeah.
Where they go through the day and they destroy themselves, and they have to sort of sort their way out through each iteration, as kind of like, I guess, game mechanics too. Like, you play a game to a certain point and you die, and then you start the game back from the last, what do you call those, game save points?
Yeah.
Right, game save. And Harry Mudd shows up trying to sell the ship to the Klingons. So, so he does this by hiding inside of a Gormander, which is kind of a space whale that by the rules of their not Federation, but what's the other term they have for these guys? They're such an endangered species in space that they're not to leave them alone for some reason. So they bring it on board, and that's how Harry Mudd gets on board. And he has a time crystal on his wrist that lets him go back and replay time, I guess, or travel back in time. And the only person who kind of clues in at first to I guess I should say, now that I've given half of the plot away, that spoilers
spoilers
in the show. Episode 7. Oh well, too bad. And just forewarning, this show is all about the spoilers, right? So we'll be spoiling all kinds of things this evening on the latest Orville episode and Star Trek Discovery. And I've already spoiled the plot of the 1966 episode as well. The only one that clues in, of course, is our pal Anthony Rapp, who plays character Stamets. Yeah, and we find out as the story progresses, because of his connection to the universe with his new connection with the spores and the spore drive, and I forget what they call that network of that sort of space sort of river that he's sort of on, the Arctic Stream or whatever you call it, right? But it's interesting because when at one of the iterations where Michael Burnham is trying to catch up to Harry Mudd, he does a log of his own because he takes over the ship at one point, and he calls out the time code being 2137.2, which I guess is just about before the ship blows up and goes back and resets time. And their only clue is that at one point there's like a power failure in this party that they're attending. So yeah, so interesting note here too. At the very end of the story, we meet the new Stella, who is Catherine Burrell, and apparently a Canadian actress again. And apparently she was in Winona Earp as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, sorry.
That's nice. It's a funny show. I like their funny show. It's a good show.
I haven't watched that show yet. Yeah. So, and the reason why Anthony Rapp's character Stamets is able to detect this is because he lives outside of the normal time stream, which now explains, if you will, why 2 episodes ago his mirror reflection was in a different time space than him inside of his apartment brushing his teeth with his partner, freak out Jonathan.
Yeah.
So what do you say about the episode, guys?
Well, I think I liked it better when it was called Cause and Effect, and it was in the 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation. But
right.
That being said, as far as well-worn science fiction tropes go, I think this was pretty well done. It was enjoyable. It was interesting. We got a nice look at who Michael is as a character, and some development of her and Tilly. We got to see a different side of Tilly, and there's lots of really. Honestly, I think this is the best episode they've done so far, and yet I found myself thinking, that's awfully quick to get to that, well-worn trope. Like they couldn't hold on to that one to season 2, and to bring Harry Mudd back too, and to bring Harry Mudd back, like it was, again, he was a great character when they first introduced him, and it was a nice little nod to the connections to the old show. But I could have waited more than 2 episodes before they brought him back.
That's true, but it did answer those nagging questions you had about whether it was right and true for Captain Lorca to leave him behind in the Klingon prison.
Well, although we have to ask ourselves, it is cause and effect. We just talked about cause and effect. If he doesn't leave him behind, does he, then not come back and kill him? What did we just establish? 50 plus times?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was, by the way, an amazingly awesome slam cut of all those scenes of him just killing and killing Lorca over and over again, teleporting him into space and watching him asphyxiate. I mean, that
doesn't get better than that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and Rainn Wilson's expression. I mean, he was magic. Again, he's clearly enjoying that character an awful lot, which is, it's good stuff. Again, I think, it was a really strong episode. We got to learn something about characters. We got a deeper look into, the kind of very complex character Michael Burnham is. A little development with her relationship with Ash, the security chief, and lots of good things about this episode. One of the most gruesome Star Trek weapons we've ever seen out of Lorca's laboratory. This disintegrator marble.
Oh, little ball, yeah.
That first we see Ash get killed in one time loop, and then we see Burnham commit rather extraordinary suicide in another by swallowing one of these death marbles.
Right. Yeah.
Good stuff. Really good stuff. It just again, I wish there was another plot device that could have gotten them there. Just because we've seen an awful lot of time loop science fiction shows over the years, and Trek probably does it best, and this was one of the best uses of it. So I don't want to pick too hard at it, but yeah, I mean, from the second that I tweaked to the fact that this was going to be a time loop episode, I was immediately.
Okay, wait. Stop. When did you first tweak to it? When the lights flickered in the party, or when?
No. That was I listen. I think I do have a bit of a nose for plot holes and stuff, but no, that was there was no clue that that's where that was going at that point. It really wasn't until they started down the path of this is going somewhere, and it was well done. Again, like and they told the time loop story in a really interesting way where it wasn't a complete loop, and we had Harry Mudd moving through it and advancing his agenda as he was going through it. And of course, like I said, Rainn Wilson is just having so much fun playing this character, and it's really he's one of those great villains where you're like, I kind of want to see what this guy does next.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, I found myself thinking, apply time loop. Yeah, sure, time loop. Okay, time loop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What do you think, Jaime?
I think I do share some of the concerns about while it's kind of early in the series to kind of come back to this particular trope. But if I take a step back and look at it from a different perspective and say, what if this episode is just a really good excuse or a really good vessel, no pun intended, to deliver a couple of important plot setup points. One, furthering the relationship between Ash Tyler and Michael Burnham, which it does for that. And two, establishing the outside of the time stream nature for Stamets, presumably for some future important thing.
Yeah, and he got some great looks in this episode too. I mean, Anthony Rapp was having a good time as this, all-knowing presence trying to cut through to solve this half-hour riddle as he's trying to go through over and over and over again, along with Harry Mudd. Lots of interesting stuff to unpack on that character. He, comes off as pretty. It's funny because he was so hardcore and serious those first few episodes, and then he got his mushroom injection, and he's been acting like a guy who's on mushrooms for a little while, and it's actually really delightful.
Yeah, I think if one criticism I have, I think they could have come up with something a little bit better for the secret that she tells Stamets in order to prove the never been in love. Like, I'm pretty sure that would have been like one of the top 3 guesses. If you randomly
really?
asked it to go into your head, okay, what's the secret thing about Michael? I was like, oh, she's never been in love. Guarantee that's in one of the top three, right? Just sort of like hard-nosed, hard-edged sort of personality, and the fact that she's been through trauma and has lived a Vulcan lifestyle. I feel like there could have been something better, like how, she and her brother used to like poke their noses and like rub it on each other's face or something,
Yeah.
That's also something you might guess, but it's not going to be top 3, and that might be top 100.
You're right. It was a very effective way to convey, to build sympathy for the character, to make us like her. We're all just like, oh, this poor flawed person, like
routine.
Yeah. Like she needs love. And then, so that finds us rooting for her and Ash, and, it's good. Again, I get why they go there, obviously, but, yeah, you're right. If somebody's going to be like, hey, I've got a secret, you're right. For somebody as awkward as Burnham, that would not be a stretch to go to.
So based on your theory from last week about Ash's ultimate agenda here, does this sort of advance or sort of create more subterfuge for his potential spydom, or are you giving up on that idea now?
No, I'm not letting go of this one yet. No, I think it's really hard to get too much out of this episode, because you have to assume that this, even though this is a loop, it takes place in the sum total of 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Because it's a half an hour time loop with a couple of minutes before and a couple of minutes after. So I don't think we can unpack a lot from the character in 45 minutes. He could have just been in survival mode or whatever, and he could still be trying to ingratiate himself with Burnham for ulterior motives. So I'm not willing to give up on my theories from last week. We talked about how I suspect this man might have allegiances not necessarily to Starfleet. We'll see. We still got a whole half a season to come, so we'll see where this goes.
It's kind of odd to think about. I didn't really sort of catch that it was like only a 45-minute loop.
He says it's a half an hour, right?
Does he? Okay, because there's a lot going on. I mean, they have to get down to the dock, and they have to go examine the Gormander and get their tricorders out, and there's no costume changes per se, but I don't know that things necessarily move that quickly on a ship, so that's a little unbelievable.
Well, I guess that's the whole point. Whereas both Harry Mudd trying to advance his agenda and Stamets trying to foil him, both within these circling loops of half an hour, it's not really a lot of time. Right. So that's why Stamets comes up with the idea of tell me something that'll convince you in this next loop really quickly, because we're going to need the other 29 minutes for you to get your butts in gear so we can actually solve this problem.
Yeah, and they must have gone through the loop they went through the loop at least 50 times, because he had to kill Lorca 50 times. And they kind of all come to, it's interesting though, because normally in this show here that we're centered around Michael Burnham, right, and her perspective on the ship. So it's interesting that Anthony Stamets is the one that figures it out first, rather than the main character. Like it's Bill Murray in Groundhog's Day that figures it out, right? There's another. I'm just trying to think here too. What's the name of Jaime, help me out here. What's the Tom Cruise movie where he and he's an army guy and he dies over and over again? No. You have no. It's a recent one, and it's confusing.
Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow is really, like, Jonathan, I know you don't like Tom Cruise movies. That's a movie that
not enough money in the world to get me to watch a Tom Cruise movie. It hasn't been for a decade and a half.
You should watch that one and just suspend disbelief and just pretend it's like Colin Firth or someone like that. But that's actually very well done. At first, when I first started watching it, I thought maybe he was a character in a video game or something like that, because he keeps dying this horrible death over and over again. And but it's the same plot point. It's the same thing. It's like they keep living this thing over and over again, and with each iteration, they get further and further into the game, if you will, till they figure out how to beat the antagonist in this one, right? So
and that one's been a tempting one for a while, because I really enjoy Emily Blunt as an actress. I really like her work, and I've heard it's actually, all things being equal, a good movie, but I just have a really tough time getting past Tom Cruise playing Tom Cruise in every Tom Cruise movie that's ever been.
Well, maybe if you had an air sickness bag beside you while you watched it, you get through it, right?
And before folks get angry at us, so it was originally released as Edge of Tomorrow, and then at some point the marketing folks said, let's rename it Live, Die, Repeat, Edge of Tomorrow.
You're kidding me.
And then there's also, I think it's based on like All You Need Is Kill is the original novel, short novel perhaps. Right. So they actually renamed it to was it Kill, Die, Repeat? Live, Die, Repeat.
Really?
Which kind of gives you the premise in the title itself, whereas Edge of Tomorrow doesn't really
Wow. Yeah, I like Edge of Tomorrow as a title better. It's kind of a 50s sci-fi title. I'm sure Heinlein or Asimov or someone has written a book with that title in the past.
So in this case, this comes from a Japanese science fiction light novel called All You Need Is Kill.
Right.
And there's rumor they're making a sequel of this one too.
Really?
Live, Die, Repeat Again?
It's literally the title is apparently revealed.
Is it called Ready Player One?
No. The title you couldn't even guess it, but it's awesome. Is revealed by Doug Lyman. Said it's going to be called Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat.
Oh wow! Okay.
Well, I wasn't in before, but now I'm in.
Yeah. Insert player 2, insert more coins.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad. Anyway, so on the After Trek show, which I like to go and collect little bits of trivia, they actually had Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz, who plays the Doctor, and Rainn Wilson came in by Skype to talk about this particular episode. And the random communications operator man was Lieutenant Junior Grade R.A. Bryce, played by Ronnie Rao. I think he's a main character though, so he's probably not, even though he died he's the one that got the little bomb thing thrown at him. Right?
Oh, right.
And it's interesting, the little helmet that Rainn Wilson wears at the very beginning, they designed it as a throwback to the Journey to Babel episode, where an Orion disguises himself as an Andorian by putting antenna on his head.
Yeah, I thought he was doing the Donnie Darko rabbit helmet at the beginning. The Andorian spot for the antennae was really neat. I didn't know what to expect when you see that character emerge from the Gormagander, but yeah.
For sure. All right.
So moving on to Star Trek The Next Generation prequel part 2.
Or what did I call it? It was really good when I saw it when it was called Black Mirror.
No, it was Justice. It was a first season episode of TNG, right? If Wesley Crusher falls on a plant.
Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. So in the Orville, the majority rule was kind of an exploration of social networking and the kind of effect it has on us. And I saw some tweets on Twitter about how it was such an awesome episode, but it's like episode 1 of season 3 of the Black Mirror, which is a very similar one where your rating in society is based on your like points. Mm-hmm. And here in this case, I forgot the name of the guy, Lieutenant, who gets himself in trouble, but he ends up they end up buying fake IDs with these. They have these all the citizens of this planet wear a badge that counts their like points and their unlike points. I don't know what you call that. And if you get below 100,000 or something like that, or 1 million, or if you get to 1 million, then you're punished or recycled, or I forget what the terminology they used for it, brainwashed basically, right? Yep. So it's an interesting story. And by the way, the number one's name is Grayson. Is that correct?
Kelly Grayson.
Kelly Grayson. Yeah.
Yeah, Kelly Grayson, which is interesting because isn't Spock's mother Amanda Grayson?
Amanda Grayson. Yeah.
I would not be surprised if those have something to do with each other.
Yeah.
Just given the fandom that comes from Seth MacFarlane.
Yeah. And just at the very end of it, the main character who's in the story is a young lady who works in a coffee shop, and she's in the cold opening, and she's in the last part there, and her decision at the very end of it is to the feed is what basically everybody sort of watches, and it's like the sort of the what's the word, Battle of the Stars, or what do you call it, Network Stars, or Dancing with the Stars. What is that show called with Simon? What's his name?
It was American Idol.
American Idol.
Also, America's Got Talent.
Right.
X Factor.
The whole reality thing where you vote people in, and she decides at the very end of it that her way of fighting against this is to just turn it off and boycott it. Again, what does that accomplish, really?
Yeah, that was my note. I made some notes as I was going through it, and I just came to that. Like, the moral of the story is don't try and be part of the solution. Just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Hope it goes away. Isn't that how some of us who are south of Mason-Dixon line got in trouble? Yeah. Anyway, so some more notes here on you were talking about the episode with Wesley Crusher. I saw a clip of it he's running and he breaks through a glass on a little greenhouse or something. I thought he walked. Yeah,
they're protecting a patch of plants or something, and the absolute rule in this episode is that if you break the law in any way, it's a death sentence, and that's why they know not to break the law. And of course, all heck breaks loose in Star Trek when Wesley Crusher kills a plant. And in this case, John Lamar sexes up a statue and
John Lamar,
and finds himself in hot water in the society where, as would happen in our society, if somebody was trying to do a sexy dance with a statue, everybody films it on their camera and posts it onto their social media. And because they're an absolute democracy, everybody votes it down and says boo to this guy doing that. And of course, John ends up having to go out and do the talk show circuit to explain his behavior.
Right.
But not working in John's favor is that John Lamar's kind of a jerk. He's not really meant for this. He goes out and he does all the wrong things and says all the wrong things, and he doesn't really feel guilty about it because he thinks this is ridiculous and just keeps making things worse and worse and worse as he goes.
Yeah. Interesting though that they chose a bronze statue of a historical figure given the times.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but I don't know. I mean, this was it was not my favorite episode of the Orville so far. Let's say that to start. But I just found, we were talking about well-worn tropes, and of all the tropes, their society is just like ours used to be. Is just, oh man, that is just the laziest writing. I just every time Trek does it, anytime any science fiction show does the like, hey, remember what it was like back in the 21st century? It's just like that, right down to the easy to make sets that have no production value. Like it's just not my favorite bit of science fiction writing when they do this. It seems cheap, especially in a show that has a really high production value like the Orville, where we've seen, aliens, and it's like they blew their budget on the Krillbarbecue episode and they had to make back one where they're like, we'll film the entire next episode in a coffee shop in LA.
Yeah. And it's the same thing as the old vehicle, the Edith Keeler Must Die episode where McCoy go back to like San Francisco, and
it was lazy but understandable then, because again, you cut the budget down, you do a few grounded episodes, helps people feel like they can access it if it seems a little dense and too sci-fi like. But and the allegory of the absolute democracy and the times we live in and how people are judged, and it was all really heavy-handed. Like there was not a lot of subtlety. This was not how do I reveal the puzzle that they're trying to tell me, the enigma that is wrapped in. No, it was really quite on Front Street, slapping the American people, no disrespect, Jaime, on the wrists over their social media behavior in the last year. And wow, it reminded me very much of that. We were talking about the beautiful ivory tower of Star Trek, and this felt like the ivoriest of ivory tower Star Trek, where it's those foolish people, how could they possibly, and of course they're pointing at us. It was really, I think, a little over the top for my taste, as far as a show that has so far been that breath of a little bit of levity, a little bit of they certainly are going some places and they have something to say, but this felt very much like an old school Trek episode of we have a moral and we're gonna kind of ram it down your throat a little bit.
Yeah. So did you put the note here about the Star Trek 4 Voyage Home with how do we disguise Spock?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot that this episode takes from various bits of Trek. So we talked about how those budget episodes were an original series sort of creation, where it's like, oh look, these guys are like the Soviet Union from the 1960s. Oh, how convenient, like this parallel evolution. And of course we mentioned the TNG episode with Wesley Crusher. I also noticed the Star Trek 4 The Voyage Home thing where they cover Spock's ears with a headband, and also they show the sort of like main female from the aliens or out of time species, the spaceship, right? That happens in Star Trek 4.
Showgirl. Okay, Showgirl. Okay, right. Got it. Yep.
And I do think a lot of this was kind of on the nose. I wrote a note here about Alara wearing the Blossom.
Yeah,
you remember that show?
Oh yeah,
in the 90s with that she unintentionally is offensive to some guy at the coffee shop because it's cultural appropriation. I feel like that one was kind of on the nose too.
Yeah. And of course, everybody starts pulling out their phones because they think they see a conflict coming. Yeah, go take that hat off right now.
And what's the comment about saved by the fake news there, Jaime?
Well, so that's literally how they solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
They inject a whole bunch of fake news of like, oh, let's generate this video. He's like, he's a soldier coming back and he's reunited with his dog. And
I thought they were going to go in. I thought they were going to get Isaac to go in and hack the results. I think that would have been a more timely way of fixing this episode, if you will, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I totally saw. That's what I saw coming as soon as I figured out. Oh, Isaac would kind of go, well, you know what? I can just go in and change the numbers, you know. But they kind of did it through the voting thing. But like, I think if you were trying to save somebody in this case and you had the technology and you were advanced enough to do it, I don't think you would go as simple as just, you know, trying to get the people, the mass media to vote. You might want to just go in and change the results, right?
I mean, as long as you're in there, but it was, I don't know, maybe they didn't really describe how the master feed itself works, and maybe the feed itself is actually pretty well, you know, constructed in terms of security. But what you can do is the fake news hack of just pumping as much false information as you can. And the young lady even says, oh, like they're never going to check that. Just post it on there. Nobody's going to double check that before they make their voting decision.
Yeah. What if people try and corroborate this information? Oh, don't worry, they won't. Like, yeah. Wait, Jaime, what if this possibly comes true? What if somebody uses this as a method for, I don't know, manipulating like a real election or something by running fake news and pirating social media to direct? Oh, never mind.
That's why we call it science fiction, because it could never happen, even if it's possible.
That's true. It's true.
Oh,
as
yeah.
the pendulum swings and smacks us in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I put here that master feed, depending on who you talk to, and I certainly checked online to see what people thought. People thought it was either Facebook or Twitter or Reddit as an analogy, and I think either one of those would be perfectly fine and correct.
Well, it couldn't be Facebook because there's no way you could actually post something and have that many people see it all at once.
Yeah, especially with the splitting of social media markets too.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, so I mean, it was an interesting story, but you know, like you said, I think as soon as I saw they were going down to Earth, I thought that they would do something complete. Sorry, not Earth, but an Earth-like place. Because, like you said, it was an easy way to build sets, and you know, there wasn't really anything. I mean, it was totally different than Earth because you know the phones weren't square; they were sort of triangular shape, right? So it was completely different.
Oh yeah,
not the same thing.
Yeah,
you know. All right, so should we move on to our things that we would like to see that are coming up?
Sure.
So before we get into that, so what have you decided about Blade Runner 2049? Tammy cornered me on that on roundabout just a few minutes ago. But
with respect to what in particular?
With you and your fiance and your girlfriend and your dog. When are you going to watch Blade Runner?
I'm hoping that it'll be this weekend. Trying to find a way to get the final cut, or heck, at this point, any of the cuts, just so we can get that out of the way. And then,
but like I said, do you really need to prep for it though, or do you personally need to prep for it?
I probably don't. I can, bless her heart, I can foresee all sorts of difficult to explain things if she doesn't see it before, where they explain things to you first.
Do they really?
Mm. You tell me. You guys have seen it.
Well, no, yeah. So there are callbacks to the original movie. Let's put it that way. I don't want to give it too much away, but they like you know how like the Rolling Stones. Every time the Rolling Stones puts out a new single, there's always a lick by Keith Richards that kind of has a sort of a hooky kind of feel to it, and that's the sort of tie that binds all the Rolling Stones music together. So you immediately recognize it as a Stones tune, even though it's completely different and it's not the same song they've played for the last 50 years. There's a little bit of that. Like there's a lot of these aren't the droids you're looking for kind of things, or he can go about his business, move along kind of lines that are in the movie that aren't necessarily said in the same context. But I just ruined it for you. There you go. Yeah, they quote Star Wars all the way through the movie. It's very confusing. But no, I mean there's a lot of those sort of there's some auditory cues. There's some things that people say and they do, but there's no sort of, they don't really go into the sort of explanation of the as much explanation as they do in the original Blade Runner movie, where they talk about the replicants and stuff like that. It's funny because I saw a talk on the making of Blade Runner. I think it was actually that guy I talked about, the Nerd Writer, I think it was. He does a bit on Blade Runner, and it's been pointed out that they tell the whole plot of the entire movie in the little text that appears before the screen before the movie plays, right? Like that actually they spill all that, they spill all the beans right up front, and they do again in this movie too. That's not much of a spoiler, but they set up the whole story. There's no mystery as to what's going to happen, in the story, but where it goes and where it ends is completely different.
I think it's a big screen movie, and I think it's meant to be seen on a big screen.
Oh, for sure.
I think anybody who enjoys good sci-fi and good filmmaking, the direction, the cinematography, it really is one of the most breathtaking movies you'll see this year.
Right.
And it's engaging. engaging in a lot of different ways. It's not a one-dimensional, sci-fi, trope-filled film. It's got some places to go and some things to say, and I think anybody would want to go see a movie like that. It's really disappointing because it premiered internationally. It did not do well there either. The word flop is kind of floating around.
Really? Wow, people are so dumb.
They gave us, we gave them our money twice. I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit like Blade Runner itself. I think, it has the unfortunate experience to have come out during a busy time of year where we're packed full of sci-fi movies. And
there wasn't like 4 months where they just build it up to death, right? That's the other thing.
Well, and we talked last week about trailers, right? We talked about, I love the new trailer for Star Wars The Last Jedi because it doesn't spoil and it gives you just these little, little nuggets of that world. Honestly, I saw the trailers for Blade Runner 2049 and it did the same thing. It didn't spoil and I didn't feel like I went in knowing everything that was going to happen. And maybe I'm in the minority. I was thinking about this as I was looking at some of the numbers thinking, gosh, that's, it's a shame this movie didn't do better, but maybe it didn't do enough to sell to the audience that doesn't know this. And
right.
They should have just, shown Ryan Gosling with his shirt off in the trailer more or something. I don't know. Like something that could have done more for it. Cause again, I feel like it's a shame that more people aren't making the time and maybe they needed to, do a 2-hour cut and a 3-hour cut for Blu-ray or something. Maybe something had to happen there. Maybe people just don't have the appetite for a 3-hour movie anymore. I'm at a loss to complain it, but again, it's a shame if people aren't, especially science fiction fans, aren't making the time for this movie because it's really something special. And it's not even going to make its money back. And
isn't it really? Oh, because there's you're right. Because they even missed over the whole romantic plot line that's in the middle of the movie, right? The Gosling character. They kind of missed, and that was sort of a throwback to Rachel and Deckard's relationship, but in a different kind of way. And it was kind of, it had a melancholy conclusion as well, right? Which is really, but that was something that's not in the trailers at all, right? The trailer seems to be about the main plot point of where's this Deckard guy, right?
Yeah.
What the trailer is saying the movie's about, and it's totally not, right?
Yeah. So it made it cost $223.4 million to make. That's not a cheap picture,
right?
And you can see it. To be fair, it has made $81 million domestically. That's Canada and the United States, and it has made $9 million in its opening in China.
Wow! So we better go see it a few more times in the theaters to help them pay back, right?
So yeah, again, and it's funny. Again, I think all the things that I loved about this film are all the things that might be holding it back. It takes its time. It's got a good pacing. It has something to say. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just.
But see, again, like Arrival and like the original Blade Runner, there's a lot to think about that's not spelt out for you. It's not in the subtitles.
That's true. This is not spoon fed to you. Maybe that's what I would recommend. I would recommend they go back. What they do is they put an audio track over the top, and then they put a happy ending on the end of it, and that'll solve all the problems.
Sure,
somebody at the studio should have stepped in and done those things. Clearly,
if only. Yeah. But it's the same sort of thing. Like I'm a big advocate for the movie theater experience. Because I like the big sound and I like the big screen and I like the fact that you can't look away and your phone, you can't get distracted by Facebook or whatever in the middle of the movie. You're not sitting in an airplane where you're dealing with the awful sound of the airplane and getting bumped by the stewardess as she takes a drink cart by. And that's how most people are going to see this movie, right? They're going to watch it on a plane or they're going to rent it at home. But the same thing like Baby Driver is another movie where you have to see that in the theater, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad that most people won't, right?
Yep. No, and again, I think you and I have always been on the same page that there is just, it's amazing. I love my television set. I have a really nice one. I have a nice surround sound system. I love watching movies at home where I can take my time and take a break and do all these different things. But in this world where we're all two-screen addicts, I've got my phone out while I'm watching the baseball game and, everybody's got the, distraction, short attention span thing. There is something about going and spending $15 to go see a movie where you can't turn on your phone and you can't do anything else. You're just immersed and the sound is big and the picture is big and you are in it for as long as they are there to show it to you. And I don't think a lot of people are as into that experience as they once were, clearly.
No, it's true.
because the only thing that's really doing well in the movie theaters are these big tentpole pictures. Again, if you're going to make an Avengers and a Last Jedi and all these other things, of course they're going to do well. But one of the reasons why I didn't mind dropping down my money and taking my son to go see Baby Driver is, at least Edgar Wright had something new to say. He was doing something different. I knew it was going to be good. I enjoy him as a filmmaker, and it was a moment where I knew, again, I was going to be sitting there focused on what this artist had created for me for that period of time and immersed in that moment. And I don't think you can get that from watching it on Netflix when it comes there, or sitting there on your tablet because this is the only time you can make during the day to sit and watch something. It does change the experience so dramatically. And I think the problem is we live in this era now of frankly, this is the best era of television that has ever existed. We have peak TV at this point. We have Game of Thrones and Westworld and all these Walking Dead and amazing television programs that are so high production value and such quality writing, and the best actors who wouldn't have touched television with a 20-foot cattle prod 20 years ago are now leaping to do their own TV shows. So maybe we're just getting worn out on movie theater experiences, and this is the casualty.
Like when it costs $200 million to make a movie like Blade Runner, when they could spend a third of that or whatever and put it on Netflix and make that money back, right? Notwithstanding what AMC's been doing, but that's the sad part about it is people aren't going to be making these big movies anymore. And to be honest, like, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Time Bandits was playing at a big theater, and I've never seen Time Bandits in the theater, but I went and watched it, and I'm telling you, it was like watching a brand new movie for me. There were things I saw in the movie on the big screen that I never would have seen on the small screen. Right? Yep. And then the next night they played Brazil by Terry Gilliam as well, and I went back and watched that. I went and saw Shaun of the Dead presented by Edgar Wright a few years ago at a theater. Right? If Blade Runner came out in the theater tomorrow, like the original Blade Runner came out in the theater tomorrow, I would be there watching it, because I do believe that there's something about being in a large theater with the tribe. That's the other part of the whole thing, the whole experience, is you're there with a bunch of other people, like-minded people. That's why Jonathan and I go to and Jaime as well, go to see Star Wars on the first day, because you're there with the real people who really care about this particular franchise, right? Yeah. Not the people who are going to casually go in and, get the VIP ticket and have the girl bring the popcorn to you kind of thing,
It's a tough thing too. We talk about how hard some of these things are, television now are doing these shorter seasons, but they're still unpacking. Again, Stranger Things can sort of while out 8 hours of television to get you all these different places it wants to go. Game of Thrones, up until this season was doing 10 episodes a year. So 10 hours plus to really unpack all these different places they wanted to take these characters and develop things. You end up with these really complex storytelling types versus even a 3-hour Blade Runner movie. It's awfully hard to get to all these places you want to go. Like Blade Runner might have just been a really great Netflix series, like maybe that's just the lesson learned here is don't spend, $250 million on one movie, spend $100 million and make it into a series, because that's where the appetite is. And again, it's a shame because I think, we both love this movie and we both want to see it in the theater and enjoy that experience. But, maybe that's where the future is going. I was thinking about the fact that, 2 weeks from now, we're going to get Justice League is going to hit the movie theaters. Now, I've been a Justice League comic book fan since I was a kid.
I used to watch the cartoon, yeah.
And I've loved, the cartoon series and the comic books and the experience. I
want that guy that does the voiceover from the cartoon to be the voiceover in this movie, though. That's the only problem.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, I am so excited for the fact that this movie exists. I'm not entirely sold it's going to be a great movie because, Warner Brothers track record, but
it's got Aquaman too, right?
It does. I love Jason Momoa, and I think he's going to be the best part of this movie. But I find myself thinking, what's going to happen that same day is Marvel and Netflix are dropping The Punisher. 13 episodes are going to drop on Netflix the same day. So if I'm finding myself with, all right, so I can go watch a 2-hour Justice League movie where they're going to try and throw a bunch of new characters at me, and it's going to be, part Zack Snyder, part Joss Whedon, and they're going to try and get me to invest in all these characters and take in all this information, and I've got 2 hours to do it on a big screen, so there's a lot to take in. And then at the same time, I'm going to get 13 hours of somebody trying to unfold the complexity of a character like Frank Castle and the Punisher. Like, who's going to win you're going to come away with so much more because you can just do so much more in 13 hours, and people will make the time for it. Again, some people will binge it over the course course of a weekend, and it'll feel like they went to a movie theater experience. They'll have immersed themselves in that experience. It's, it's a tough era for people's consumption habits to make movies nowadays. Even ones that should be huge tentpoles like Justice League may not be what we think they could be or could have been 10 years ago.
Sure. I have one question though. What does Jaime think?
There you go.
Having not seen the movie, it's a little hard to say, where they could have gone with the marketing. I definitely appreciate the fact that they have more secretive marketing that doesn't give everything away. I'm not entirely certain that the secretiveness of the plot itself is like a huge sort of swing for that. I don't think people need to have it spoon-fed for them in order to decide whether they're going to want to go. Like back in 98, 99, whichever year it came out, The Matrix gave you like nothing for the very first stuff, and everybody's really pumped of like, what is The Matrix? Holy smokes, what is this? This movie seems interesting. Got that mystery to it. I think in the modern era, to Jonathan's point about having all these different sort of avenues that you can explore to get your media consumption. It's not just the movie theaters. I kind of wonder if they missed out by not having tie-ins to other things. Like Justice League already has toys available. It has merchandise available. I'm sure even Thor Ragnarok, probably, like if I go to Taco Bell or something, they're probably going to have like a Thor cup, special collector editions plastic cup I can get with Thor's face on it or something. I don't know that that's actually true, but that's kind of what I expect out of these big sort of like tentpole films. So if they're looking to have a $200-some million movie they're producing, I feel like they didn't do that part of it.
And it was rated R in America. It was adult accompanying. It was 14 plus. But to make it an R movie of science fiction too, I think was a bold choice because that immediately segments your audience. And you can say that, we've obviously seen some successes over the last couple of years. Deadpool, Logan, things like that come to mind. But of course they have a built-in audience too. To go out with an R-rated 3-hour, like maybe it was just a stacked deck against this film. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. It's why a lot of media has come out at PG-13, even when their source material was rated R. Like RoboCop comes to mind as for that remake, or the original was rated R, or at least was a very hard 13, and now is kind of more of a soft 13, I think, for the 2014 edition of RoboCop.
I haven't seen the remake yet, but I'm guessing there's nothing quite as gross as Peter Weller getting his hand shot off, and that execution scene from the first movie. Something tells me it didn't translate to the new one.
No, nothing quite like that. And actually, that one didn't bother me as much as a kid. What bothered me the most? Spoilers for the original RoboCop from the 1980s. Is when that one guy gets the like acid or toxic waste dumped on him.
Hit by the car.
Yeah, I mean he's like, he's like all melted and in pain, and then he gets splattered by the car. Like, that was horrifying.
I'm still haunted by it, buddy. I'm with you.
Kids.
See, but I feel like they didn't mind making toys of that sort of stuff before. I don't think that guy came with like exploding slime edition or anything. But
I was going to say, did you get that guy? And I
seem to recall a RoboCop toy from back when I was a child that had like built-in caps. Remember caps? The little explosives. There was like a RoboCop toy that had built-in caps where you could fire it off and it sounded like RoboCop was shooting at innocent or bad guys or whatever. I remember thinking what an odd choice that was for toy, but
I think I told Jaime this story before, but I don't know if I ever told you, Jonathan. But I used to have a couple of G.I. Joe figures, right? And they were astronauts, right? And so at one point I was inspired by the $6 Million Man, and so I made a fireproof suit for my G.I. Joe out of tinfoil, and I put him in a pool of gasoline and lit it on fire. So it was kind of like the same sort of thing as you were just describing, because when I realized, oh no, wait, it's plastic, it's going to melt, and I started pulling back, it was like I had just basically melted my G.I. Joe figure, right?
Is that the one that came with lifelike hair and bread?
Lifelike hair and bread, yeah, that's the one.
Where's the bread?
Where's bread? Yeah, so I remember my mother used to one year she put our presents that we asked for at the foot of our bed, so when we woke up, instead of having a tree or whatever, right? And it was wrapped in brown paper. I guess it must have just come from the Eatons as gift wrapped or whatever. And I could sort of see through the brown paper that it said G.I. Joe with lifelike hair. And I opened it up and first thing in the morning, and it said, I read it as G.I. Joe with lifelike hair and bread. And I spent all that day and week looking in the box going, where's the bread? Because of course it was lifelike hair and beard. Now you get it. Guess what the title of this episode is going to be?
Yeah, I was going to say that's a great one for the stinger too.
Life like hair and bread.
And now I have life like hair and bread.
Yeah, that's right.
Exactly.
Someday I'm going to grow up and have life like hair and bread.
Okay, but getting back to our picks.
Yeah.
So Jaime, you've got a pick here or two. You've got one pick.
I've got one. It's not a want to see anymore because I actually binged through and saw all of it. But that would be Stranger Things season 2. It's 9 episodes, so 8.5 to 9 hours of content there. And of course, they also have.
I'm actually watching episode 5 right now. I've got another 20 minutes to go tonight.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I haven't seen is whatever the after show is. I forget what the exact title of it is, but it's. I think there's one per episode where they sort of talk to the actors and actresses.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't see that.
That particular episode. So I think it's intended to be watched after you see the series and then kind of go through and see how they interpret things themselves.
Cool. All right. So, Jonathan, what do you got on here?
I have Star Wars Forces of Destiny. Now, I'll ask you, either of you, if you've watched this.
No clue.
Forces of Destiny. So, this is a series of shorts that they've been airing on the Disney Channel.
Okay.
They've been putting them out through social media as well. You can watch them online. So they did the first group of 8 of them. They put them together as a TV special and put them on the Disney Channel this summer. And they're all focused on the different female characters from the Star Wars universe. So we have Ahsoka, we have Jyn Erso, we have Hera from Rebels, Maz Kanata, Rey, Sabine, Padme, Leia. So we do get a lot of these, and it actually has, like, with the exception of obviously Leia, it has the actresses who play these parts. So Felicity Jones is playing Jyn Erso. We've got Lupita Nyong'o playing Maz Kanata. Daisy Ridley's playing Rey. And there's
are these live action or are they?
They're cartoons. They're about just 2.5, 3 minutes long. Okay. They're just these little sort of short vignettes, little scenes, little sort of episodes throughout. Yeah, little bits, little stories that are set in this universe, focusing on these female characters. And I've enjoyed what they did so far, but I will say they just dropped 2 days ago. They dropped another bunch of them. They dropped another 4, and I watched one of them that is going to spark me to go watch the rest of them. So I'll give you the loose plot of this one because it's just this. If this doesn't entice you to go watch this series, I don't know what will. So the episode is called An Imperial Feast, and it is set in the wake of Return of the Jedi, and Han and Chewbacca are watching as the Ewoks start gathering up captured stormtroopers for a barbecue.
Nice.
Because they're hungry.
Yeah.
And so the two of them are laughing and thinking this is hilarious. And of course, Leia shows up and says, we can't let them cook and eat the stormtroopers. You got to go find something else. So Han and Chewie have to go find Hera Syndulla from Rebels, who's a general in the rebellion, to get an order of rations to try and feed the Ewoks so that they will not cook and eat the stormtroopers. And it's only about it's a little less than 3 minutes, but it's very funny and very, very well done. And it's just a nice, just these nice little funny, quick looks at this thing. And again, the purpose of this whole series is to sell toys. They've done a whole line of toys to go with this series. There's a whole set of dolls that have come out of these different female characters that are sort of targeting this market for younger consumers of Star Wars products. So it's, you got to take it for what it's worth. But
was that the pictures of the female characters that I took at the Hasbro booth at Expo? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the picture?
So it's out there. And again, obviously, it doesn't touch on our lives a heck of a lot at this point, but it is good and it's fun. And I will wholeheartedly recommend checking that one out. Again, it's, if you follow Star Wars on social media, they tweet these things out so you can just, digest them on your phone. They don't take a lot of investment of your time, but I highly recommend checking out the episode Imperial Feast. And I'm going to dive in and watch the rest of the ones that just premiered and catch up on a couple of the older ones I haven't seen. There's only, they've done 16 so far, 16 times 3. It's not going to take you a long time to watch every last one of them if you want to catch up, but definitely worth the time.
So how do people find that if they're not watching it on TV per se?
You can see it on social media if you follow any of the Star Wars feeds on Facebook or Twitter, or they post them all there. So it's pretty easy to come by.
So how do we know that the Ewoks didn't evolve into the Klingons by eating their prisoners?
That's one theory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not like they're eating the faces off them or anything like that, you know?
Flesh off their skull.
The flesh off their skulls. Oh.
Nope.
Still the most haunting moment in Star Trek history for me.
Right.
All right. So my pick is I literally just found out about it thanks to the Facebook, not even a half an hour before we started recording, but apparently the Jabberwocky by Terry Gilliam is being done as a 4K Criterion collection on Blu-ray and DVD, and it's coming out in a couple of weeks. So Jabberwock is I think it was Terry Gilliam's first movie that he made after The Holy Grail, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which was directed by two people, Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam, and both of those two directors said they would never ever do that kind of thing again, where they're, one director is all you need, really. What I like about this story, it stars Michael Palin, if you've never seen it before, as this hapless boob that is in love with this woman that couldn't give him the time of day, back in the dark Middle Ages of Britain. And the way that Terry Gilliam paints life at that time, and I use the term paint in the same sense as you would in a sort of a middle-aged painting. The whole way he portrays society at that time, the politics, the class system, the living in filth kind of thing, is classic. I mean, the ancient king and his dresser have this sort of what do you call it? What's Leonard's mother call Howard and Raj's relationship in The Big Bang Theory? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But they have this great relationship, these two men, if you can imagine. And it's a fabulous movie, and it's got lots of subtext to it. Actually, as a matter of fact, just as a point of fact about this, I guess, is that when George Lucas went to, where did he go in England to make the New Hope, Jonathan?
I want to say Leavesden, but I think Leavesden is the new one.
No, it begins with an S or D or... Anyway, George Lucas apparently was this pompous American director who came over, and all of the British staff who were making the film didn't like him very much. So they kept skipping off to go work on the Terry Gilliam movie because they had more fun there. Right? And they were both filmed. Jabberwocky was filmed at the same time as A New Hope was done. All the sort of, set scenes were done for New Hope. And in fact, the Black Knight is played by David Prowse, who of course is Darth Vader. Right. So he's actually in both movies. And at the time he was a bodybuilder. He's like the biggest actor, physically biggest actor in England. And that's why he got a lot of those, heavy roles. He was also in A Clockwork Orange as the trainer that is near the end of the movie, right? So the jock character, right? But yeah, so it's a great movie. I mean, they borrowed set pieces like Army from old classic British films, and but it's just the way that Terry Gilliam portrays what life must have been like back in the Middle Ages is just classic. It's like there's not, in the same way that Ridley Scott does, dark and dusty and smoke-filled, polluted sci-fi, with the rain constantly coming down, that kind of thing. Terry Gilliam does the same sort of thing with the Jabberwocky. So, and that would have been 1976, I guess, right? So, does he predate Blade Runner? I guess he does.
Yeah.
So, interesting thing. And of course, if you watch the old the reason why I went to see Jabberwocky is because when I saw the Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I went with my mother of all people and my sister. I loved that story. I loved Monty Python at the time. I loved the way that they had an irreverent way of telling stories, and so Jabberwocky was just more of a Monty Python and the Holy Grail fix. And it's more of it's almost like it's not a sequel to it, but it's very much feels the same way because Terry Gilliam had a big hand in doing the Holy Grail stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that movie.
I'm still haunted by the bathroom scene in that one.
Yes, yeah.
Still one of the most vivid.
The part where the father's talking to him in the window.
Yes.
And he's got his taking care of business at the same time.
Yes.
Into the river that Dennis is paddling through.
It's still one of the most played so straight, but the look on Palin's face as this guy is going to the bathroom while having a conversation with him is it's priceless. It's priceless. Yeah, it's a very underrated movie. I think I watched it because somebody I know.
Well, as Jonathan says, sorry,
it's like somebody I know really liked that movie, so they passed it on to me.
Yeah. So if you look at the old paintings of the time, like in London or anywhere, Italy and places like that, if you look at the bridges, they had all these little rooms all the way across the bridges, and what they actually were public bathrooms.
Yeah. And this is portrayed in vivid moving picture style by the movie
by Terry Gilliam, for sure. Yeah. Complete with sound effects.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
boy, it's going to be great to look at on Blu-ray. I'm so glad they're restoring this movie to its quality.
It's all its living glory. Exactly. Exactly. All right. Hey, Jaime, if people want to look for you on interwebs, where would they look?
I'm on Twitter as @DevWithTheHair.
All right. And Jonathan, if people want to find you out there?
I am JPK at JPK News.
All right. And I am Timitra, TIMMITRA on the Twitter machine. And I guess we'll talk to you guys next week. So until then, bye.
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 If you want to find out more about the podcast or see episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. You can get in touch with us on the website or follow us on Twitter at Spockcast. If you have feedback or questions, send us a tweet with the hashtag AskSpockcast. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount on patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find out details on how to help us out on our website at Spockcast/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
I was going to ask, we skirted the whole issue of Anthony Rapp's reveal this weekend of the fact that he was...
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't know if that was something we want to get into or how
we can kind of leave those kind of things for the tabloids.
Yeah.
That one's a really rough one, and it adds a real impact on House of Cards, which supposedly was already going to have season 6 as the final season, but
really?
Now they've suspended production on it indefinitely.
Did they really?
Yeah, until they can figure out what's going to happen. And
oh, wow. Well, it's funny, this whole Weinstein thing, which is kind of what we're skirting around, and another facet of it. We're still recording, by the way.
Yep.
What surprises me is that people think that it's just one person at one time is the evildoer, when we've known about the casting couch for years and years and years and years, right? So that the fact that they think it's one incident or one person, one perpetrator. We had Cosby a few years ago. We've now got Weinstein, and now possibly the other American president.
Yeah.
So
and we've had it come out. It came out today that Brett Ratner has been accused now by Olivia Munn and Tasha Henstridge and a bunch of other women of sexual harassment and misconduct. Of course, Ratner did X-Men: The Last Stand, and he's done a lot of movies actually.
Oh, that's him. Okay, I was wondering who he was. Yeah.
So yeah, we've seen this sort of Weinstein effect just rolling across Hollywood, where obviously women feel like there's an opportunity for them to put some of these things out on Front Street that may have been in the shadows for a long time, and obviously we don't know one way or the other where these things fall. But wow, it's really we've gone from Jeremy Piven was accused the other day, of course for star of Entourage was accused, and he's denied any allegations, but he's been accused of sexual misconduct, and now Kevin Spacey, and so it seems like this is we're definitely seeing something happen here, which hopefully in the case of some of these it's an opportunity that is for the better, and it's also it's shocking in some ways to see it. But you're right. I mean, I don't think it was a secret that obviously the men were taking advantage of these positions of power.
Well, and the Weinstein thing could have happened 20 years ago, right? Like, but Olivia Munn's career has only taken off in the last little while. She was actually on a show on G4 with
oh yeah, she was great with
what's his name from
Hack of the Show. That was a great show.
Hack of the Show, and she was on with our buddy from Talking Dead. What's his name? Chris Hardwick, right?
Yep.
I think he was a secondary host. Was another guy who's the main host, but he was on that show for a while too.
Yep.
Anyway, and she came out of that show and then started her Hollywood career. So it's not been that long that she's now a name you can drop and people would know who she is, right?
Yeah, and she was wonderful on HBO's The Newsroom. That's one of my favorite shows.
Oh, was she on Newsroom? Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she did 3 seasons of The Newsroom, and she was really, really, really good on that show. Actually, it was funny because I watched that Attack of the Show and hadn't really followed her into being an actress as much as she was a personality.
Right.
And then caught up with that show because I have an affection for stories about newsrooms, and B, because I like Jeff Daniels, and I found her to be sort of one of the revelations of that show. I thought she was really, really quite good as a character she played on it.
Huh. I have to go back and watch that.
Yeah,
so is that show coming back, by the way?
Newsroom?
Yeah.
No, they did. It did two full seasons, and then they decided they weren't going to do any more, so they gave them, I think, 6 episodes to wrap the whole thing up. So it's actually a pretty tidy little beginning, middle, and end of the story. So it actually it was nice. They didn't just get outright canceled. They actually got a chance to sort of go up, go down, and end on a note they wanted to end on. So it actually is kind of nice in a way to not be this long running 7-year odyssey. You can actually just sort of enjoy it as this little chunk. It's really, really good. Really wonderful ensemble. Of course, written by what's the name of the guy who did The West Wing? So good.
Was it a Sorkin production?
Sorkin, that's of course Aaron Sorkin. He was the creator of that show, and it's got these great moments, and it's funny and it's dramatic, and it can reduce you. It's like Rescue Me. It can reduce you to tears and reduce you to tears of laughter in the same episode. And I admire shows that have that range.
Cool. Yeah. Wasn't there a Canadian show of a similar vein?
There was a newsroom show. There's actually a CBC show called The Newsroom.
Oh, was it? Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And that was actually really
comedy, though, wasn't it?
It was, and that was a really good show as well. But and Sorkin sort of dipped his toe into this years before. He did a show called Sports Night. It was on ABC that lasted a couple of seasons with the late Robert Guillaume, who was on that, and that was actually really, really well done. A bit of an underrated show, but anybody who likes Sorkin's writing would definitely do well to look that one up. It's really well done too.
Cool.
Yeah.
All righty. Yep. Okay. Right, let's call this a night. Hang on. Where's
all right.
Button.
Most of us have clothes we've loved for years, maybe even decades, but it's harder than ever to find clothing that will stand the test of time. So before you update your closet this summer, take a look at American Giant. From hoodies and t-shirts to denim and more, they've got everything you need to build a wardrobe that you'll be proud of for summers to come. American Giant is made in the USA. That ensures that they can deliver items of exceptional quality, but it also creates jobs across the country. You're not just buying clothes that last, you're helping create a lasting change in the communities where they're made, and a connection to the seamsters, cutters, and factory workers who make them. Discover the American Giant difference today. Shop wardrobe essentials that last a lifetime at American-Giant.com and get 20% off your order when you use code LT23 at checkout. That's 20% off at American-Giant.com, promo code LT23.
There's a reason you always trust your gut. Your whole body's health depends on it. Did you know 70% of your immune system resides in your gut? Invest in your health with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. DS-01 is formulated with 24 clinically and scientifically studied probiotic strains and a plant-based prebiotic to support whole body benefits. It works to promote healthy regularity and relief from occasional digestive discomfort and bloating. Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic is also formulated to support a healthy immune system, and it even helps you look healthier and more vibrant on the outside by promoting smooth, clear, healthy skin. Invest in your whole body's health with Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic. Go to seed.com/gut and use code 25GUT to get 25% off your first month. That's 25% off your first month of Seed's DS-01 Daily Symbiotic at seed.com/gut. Code 25GUT.